After a bomb threat evacuation, the real danger was just beginning. Before we dive into the story, tell us where you're watching from. A youth pastor discovered an unknown package hidden inside his church van while driving a group of shaken teenage girls home. The night had already stripped away their sense of safety, and now a new threat had quietly joined them on the ride. In that moment, his choice was stark and immediate. Protect the children in his care or protect himself. The weight of that decision would shape everything that followed, beginning in the shadowed chaos of the church parking lot. Blue and red lights painted the church walls as officers urged the crowd to step back. The youth pastor stood with one arm raised, quietly counting the girls clustered around him until he was certain every face was there. Their expressions, caught in the flash of emergency strobes, looked drained and unsteady. Parents were trying to reach them, cell phones buzzing in his pocket. The reception came in jagged bursts, voices breaking apart through static. Even so, the emotion was clear, worry so sharp it bled through the crackle. He answered in the same even tone each time, masking his own pounding pulse. The girls huddled close, pressed shoulder to shoulder. Their usual chatter was gone, replaced by silence and stiff body language. One clung tightly to a friend's sleeve and refused to let go. Their small movements told the story. Fear had settled heavy over them. He knew staying by the police line was not easing their nerves. He made a quiet choice. The best chance of calming them was to take them away from the flashing lights and confusion. He guided the girls toward the van with steady words and gestures, leading them through the dim lot with practiced calm. The sliding door closed, sealing the group inside. The interior felt compressed, the ceiling lower than usual. The girls strapped themselves in obedient silence. When he turned the key, the steady hum of the engine felt unsettling against the stiffness in the air. What set this thread apart was its texture. The call had included enough detail that it couldn't be shrugged off as random. It hinted at familiarity, as though their routine had been observed. That suggestion that someone had been watching them sank deeper than the flashing lights behind them. He steered toward the main road, letting the church parking lot fall behind. The van moved forward through the night, carrying anxious teenagers and the weight of unanswered questions. He had chosen to bring them home. But as the road stretched out, that decision would soon feel far less straightforward. The van's interior carried a stillness that felt heavier with every mile. Dark windows framed only faint outlines of the roadside, while inside, the youth pastor kept his hands firm on the steering wheel. His knuckles showed pale against the faint dashboard glow. In the back, the quiet cracked when one of the younger girls began to sob softly. That sound rippled through the others, unsettled and contagious. He checked the mirror once, scanning each of their faces in the reflection. Meeting their eyes there, he steadied his own expression, making sure what they saw was calm, not strain. He knew their composure rested on his. A moment later, he began to sing. The choice was simple, a hymn they all carried in memory from countless Sundays. His voice was low at first, filling the space between engine hum and quiet sniffles. Then, after a pause, a few girls joined with him. Their tones wavered but slowly grew stronger, layered over each other until the notes felt like a thread binding them together. For a few minutes, the hymn replaced fear with something familiar and steady. If this part resonates with you, leave a comment. It helps others feel seen. When the last words of the hymn faded, silence returned, warmer but fragile. The girls shifted in their seats, some leaning closer, others wrapping arms around themselves. A single phone lit up briefly before its signal dropped away. Messages were still trying to reach them, parents pressing for reassurance, but the connection failed as often as it worked. That intermittent pulse of light and silence only underlined how cut off they really were. So he kept his tone even, repeating simple assurances. He reminded them they were together, they were moving forward, they would reach home. The words were practical, spoken from habit, but also necessary. An anchor he could provide when nothing else felt certain. But his routine checks weren't finished. As silence set in again, his gaze returned to its pattern. Mirror to glass, glass to shadow, then further back still. And it was during that final sweep, in the farthest stretch of the van, that something new caught his attention. Near the very back, something caught his eye that unsettled him. A shape pressed against the cargo wall, small but solid, sitting too neatly in the shadows. It didn't look like it had shifted there during the drive. It looked placed. His mind reached for ordinary answers. A lost jacket, a food drive box left behind, church van items that came and went without notice. Yet he couldn't shake the thought that he had checked the van recently, even cleared out every stray thing. Nothing should have been there. The shape itself was wrong, too square, too intentional. Not slouched like a bag, not soft like a blanket. Its hard corners seemed to insist it hadn't been forgotten. A chill moved over him. At the church, the danger had been on the outside where police could handle it. This felt different. This lived in the same space as the girls, riding with them in the dark. The package was wrapped in plain brown paper, taped heavily and unevenly. The very look of it raised alarms. He thought he saw hints of something beneath the torn edges, the kind of detail that suggested more than just a box. The exact mechanism was unclear to him. He only knew it didn't belong here. Not with them. His grip tightened around the steering wheel until his fingers ached. The hymn that had lifted their voices only minutes earlier now rang hollow in his ears. That comfort they'd shared was already at war with the sight behind him. The van pressed on through the night. Road noise faded beneath the pounding thump of his heartbeat. Every inhale made him aware of the 7 girls trusting him without question. They leaned back into their seats, unaware of what he now carried in his vision and in his mind. He told himself not to panic, but the truth pressed heavier the longer he drove. Their escape vehicle might be the very place where danger lived, and with each passing second, he knew he could not ignore it. That realization forced him into the next, more unbearable puzzle. What he chose to do about it would matter more than anything else. Time thinned to a heavy silence, stretching across every second. The youth pastor realized he stood between 2 impossible paths, neither safe, neither kind. The weight pressed down with an urgency that left no room for waiting. One choice was to pull over. That would force the girls into the dark shoulder of a rural road, exposed and unprotected, with no certainty of help arriving soon. The other was to keep driving. With that, he risked carrying the unknown package closer to families, closer to the living heart of town. The box remained inside with them, humming in his thoughts. He had no idea what might set it off. The unknown pressed harder than the road itself. He trusted his ability to manage ditches and traffic, but the package offered no rules, no margin, just a sealed mystery riding behind their seats. His mind reached for steadiness, for something that would cut through the panic of alternatives. And then it came, an image of each girl being handed safely back to her parent, a mother's arms closing, a father's nod of relief. That picture anchored him. It outweighed his own fear and held his foot steady on the gas. It was survival instinct to run, to leap out and leave danger behind. His gut whispered the urge to pull over and flee. But duty had a heavier voice. He was the adult in this band. If it came to it, he would be the last one out, not the first. The girls depended on that promise without even saying it. Then, up ahead through the glare of his headlights, he spotted a relief in the distance. Not another stretch of shadow, but light, harsh and steady against the night. A gas station, open, alive with movement. A place with space and brightness. That became the third option. Not isolation and risk. Not carrying the threat endlessly forward. But a stop, where others were near and where light could blunt the fear. He didn't waver any longer. He aimed for the light ahead and kept driving. He kept his voice steady, quiet enough to settle the nerves layered thick in the van. "We're going to make a quick stop," he said, eyes never leaving the road ahead. The glow of the station grew brighter in the windshield, too harsh to ignore, and he measured each word to prepare them without igniting fear. "Unbuckle now," he told them. "Wait for my word." Simple, short commands. He paired them with the same calm tone they had heard many times in church safety drills. Familiar words, ordinary in sound even as they carried heavy meaning tonight. Inside, he focused on the sequence that had to come next. He ran the steps through one last time, careful and practiced. The order mattered. His place in it mattered most. He would stand last, always between them and the van. The girls sensed the change in him. His shoulders were tighter, and though his words stayed level, something underneath pushed them to listen without breaking rhythm. They whispered low to one another, but no one argued, no one hesitated. Trust built across years now held in this moment. The van rolled under the station canopy, the fluorescent light washing across glass and metal. It changed the inside, too. That pale wash made the van look smaller, like the walls had closed in, and it stripped away the comfort of the dim road. Now every anxious eye, every fidgeting hand was clear. He chose a spot that felt safest, not too close to the pumps, not pressed against the doors, but in a pocket of brightness where escape felt reachable. The tires crunched softly as the vehicle slowed to a stop. The idling engine hummed beneath them. His hand shifted toward the latch, resting there for just a second longer than usual. He let out a single breath. This was the last calm moment they would have, a thin pause before motion would take over. He looked back at the girls once more. Their faces were pale and waiting. The silence pressed into the space between them. His grip closed on the handle. The next word from him would break the quiet and send everything into motion. "Everyone out. Now." His voice was low but steady, words clipped into commands that left no room for hesitation. The side door slid back, the sound familiar but hollow against the weight of the night. The girls moved quickly, their steps brisk and controlled, as if the countless safety drills they'd practiced had finally found their test. He watched their faces as they filed past, looking for any pause, any flicker that might signal doubt. They obeyed without breaking stride. One girl lingered a second, her hand brushing toward her phone on the seat. But his brief shake of the head was answer enough. She moved on. The line held, then silence. The van emptied, leaving him alone with the presence he tried not to glance toward. The package was still there, unseen but undeniable. His skin prickled with a steady awareness of it. Without slowing, he slipped out and followed, his body positioned instinctively between the children and the vehicle. They moved across the bright asphalt toward the glass doors. He guided with gestures more than touch, ushering them close together as they approached the entrance. The automatic doors parted with a mechanical sweep, and the spill of indoor light swallowed them inside. A clerk looked up, first confused, then alert, as 7 pale-faced teenagers crowded the space. The youth pastor stepped to the counter, speaking simply, quickly. He explained there had been a bomb threat, that something in the van wasn't right, that help was needed immediately. Words crisp, trimmed to the essentials. The call for assistance went out without delay. Behind the glass, he saw the girls gathering together near a corner of the store. Their shoulders leaned against each other, uncertain but contained. For them, the barrier mattered. The glass meant safety. Outside again, he made the report to emergency dispatch, giving the location and the reason, laying out what he had seen. He spoke steadily, giving just enough detail, and never let his gaze drift from the spot where the girls waited. When the call ended, he stayed put. The parking lot was too bright, too quiet under the humming fluorescent lights. He took a deliberate stance between the van and the store windows, his body a visible wall. The night held its breath. And that was when the first sound began to rise in the distance. Faint at first, but nearing with each second. The wait began in the glow of the gas station lights, stretching long and uneven. Officers arrived quickly, their cruisers filling the lot with flashing colors. They moved with steady purpose, securing the perimeter and keeping cars at a distance. The store itself became a holding space, a fragile shelter wrapped in glass. Inside, the fluorescent bulbs felt too bright. The girls huddled together near the back wall, their voices nearly gone. One wiped her face with her sleeve. Another leaned into a friend's shoulder. Parents began to show up, only to be held behind the tape outside. Their frustration and fear pressed against the windows, visible but contained. The youth pastor carried himself between both circles. Outside, he gave details to officers in clipped, careful sentences. He described the package and where it sat. Inside, he knelt beside the girls, speaking just enough to steady them, reminding them that help was here now. Between his words and his nods, he stood as their bridge, a presence for parents who could not yet hold their children, and a voice for the children who could not yet hear from their parents. A short time later, the bomb squad arrived with heavy gear and practiced coordination. They unloaded and set up remote equipment, preparing to confront what everyone dreaded. The team's movements were calm, ordered, almost quiet, in contrast to the emotions pressing against the glass. From inside the store, every eye fixed outward. The girls were silent now, their small cluster frozen in place. Parents held their breath with hands against the window. The clerk abandoned the counter entirely, pulled by the same need to see. All of them watched through the glass while professionals took over. The shift of responsibility that comes when adults must trust those prepared for dangers no family is ready to face. The equipment rolled closer to the van, extending its arm with measured motions. Each inch forward carried the same weight as a heartbeat. It reached toward the rear space, probing the dim interior where the box waited. The moment stretched thin, every person in the store holding to the scene. And then, as the process moved forward, attention began to shift to the one man keeping closest contact with the team. The youth pastor who had carried the children out, and who was about to hear what they had truly been spared. The commander approached quietly, helmet tucked under his arm, his expression lined with fatigue but steady. His words were measured. The bomb squad had confirmed the package was a real device. Specialists determined it was rendered safe, no longer capable of harm. It was not a hoax, not a decoy. The danger had been present all along. What investigators shared next struck even deeper. They concluded the device had been intentionally placed, not accidentally abandoned. Its placement suggested forethought and targeting, though the full motive remained unclear. This was not random debris left behind. Someone had wanted it found there. The youth pastor felt the rush of relief twist immediately into something colder. For every mile driven, the threat had been alive with them. The sense of safety he tried to provide the girls had always been standing on a knife's edge. That thought settled heavily into his chest. Questions surged faster than answers. If not random, then why here? Why them? Investigators pointed only to what they could see, the deliberate nature of the act and the calculated timing of its discovery. The deeper reasons remained hidden, in silence. Inside the store, the weight of waiting finally cracked. Officials allowed the parents to step past the barrier. The first thing was relief. Daughters scooped into arms, kissed on foreheads, clutched with both hands. Then came anger. Demands for explanation flared. Who allowed this? When would answers come? The joy of reunion tangled quickly with fear that would not loosen easily. The youth pastor stood back, watching both sides, children still clinging, parents pressing questions toward officers. He did not interfere. His role had shifted the moment the girls were returned. Now he bore the quiet knowledge of just how near the danger had been. A truth best carried with care. The device was gone. The parking lot would soon fade back to routine, but the hours to come would not be simple. Parents would drive children home in silence, listening for every breath. The girls would replay the night in fragments. The immediate danger ended, but the emotional aftermath would take time. And in that quiet truth lay the beginning of what this night would come to mean, not just for one church van, but for how people understand the weight of protection itself. That night showed what a single choice under pressure can mean. The youth pastor decided to stay calm and to lead, even as fear pushed at every corner. His focus was not himself, but the children in his care. And that decision gave them a chance to reach safety. It also carried a larger reminder. Adults bear the responsibility of guiding children through danger. Calm leadership and simple planning can turn panic into direction. Talk tonight with a parent, teacher, or friend about how you'd act in an emergency. What would you do in that moment? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. He had acted. The rest would come later.